They say all is fair in love and war, but all is not fair. Why do the good die young? Why does evil prosper?
People who knock these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
In this series, Love and War find their beginning. Only by knowing their past do we get clues as to how the story ends.
The Bible does give President Trump moral authority to use whatever force necessary.
Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. How quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
At first, Lucifer was in shock. Everyone was. Was Jannah supposed to carry on business as usual? Day by day seemed to have more questions than answers, and with so much misunderstanding around the covenant, the citizens of Jannah, the guardians, were told that Lucifer would be given time to defend the principles he had shared. But Jannah felt empty. The family was torn apart. And just a few days later, reports started to circulate that Earth, this new and distinct and different species, was to be created. Sentient beings with the ability to somehow create life. A race of beings almost as powerful as the Guardians, yet with powers that even the Guardians didn't have. We don't know if other civilizations out there have the power to procreate like we do, but we do know there was something unique about us. Before immortality was granted to us, though, there was to be a test of loyalty. After Lucifer and his followers were cast out, there was some kind of meeting, understanding, agreement between Michael and Lucifer regarding the rules of engagement in the war. And the result of that meeting was an understanding that outlines intervention, protection, war, sickness, miracles, prayer, possession, oppression, abductions, visitations, violence, dreams, visions, prophecies, predictions, and a whole lot more. There seems to be some sort of binding agreement that both sides have to abide by. If mankind was to pass the test, they would become free to occupy the estates formerly enjoyed by Lucifer and the legions. The basis of freedom everywhere is choice, and mankind must enter the contest just like everyone else by choosing who we will follow and serve. You may be wondering if other sentient beings have had to take a similar test of loyalty. It seems so, but we on Earth are the only ones to have chosen Lucifer. Lucifer was no longer allowed in the city, so he would stand outside the gate and mock and taunt the guardians and seek to shame them when they passed through. On one of these trips, a guardian was headed back to the city from an assignment. As you near the city, you can start to hear the music, smell the flowers, and this time this guardian was called over for a chat with Lucifer. He wanted a meeting with Michael. And the guardian delivered the news, and Michael agreed and met with Lucifer. Lucifer shared that he'd made a mistake and he wanted to come back. He'd take any position that was assigned to him. The oracles who have seen this scene in vision describe how Michael began to weep. He told Lucifer it wasn't possible, that deep down rebellion had taken root. This was very confusing to many of the guardians, and for a long time no one understood. But from that day on, Lucifer became relentless. And then the creation project began. Everyone was there to witness it. Elohim, the three beings we referred to earlier as administration, they were there. And Michael led out. Each day was full of activity. The azure sky, turquoise waters, the green forest, then came the whales and the birds and the animals, and then man, made from the minerals and bacteria, particles, nutrients from the ground, all that we needed to enjoy life forever. But that wasn't all. After all was created, a day was established as a holiday to be celebrated each week so that mankind would never forget his origin and his destiny, a Sabbath of bliss on the seventh day of every week. Once everything was completed, rumors began to spread from the Legion camp. Misery loves company, right? Well, it wasn't long before they seemed up to something. They thought that if they could persuade man to join them, then maybe, just maybe, Elohim would let them back into the city. That, or worst case, they'd make the earth their headquarters to show everyone what liberty and following your heart looks like. Look around today. Take a good look. This is what their regime has brought us. This is what following your heart looks like. As we turn on the evening news, it's selfishness to the nth degree. After we humans were created, the guardians would meet daily with our ancestors to share about the secrets of nature, the history of the war, and how not to be led astray. You can imagine them meeting in this beautiful paradise, this garden. Lucifer didn't come at them as a being of dazzling brightness. Instead, he possessed the most beautiful of all the creation, the golden flying serpent. At this time, it looked more like a dragon, large with wings, golden scales, and eyes like flames of fire. Mankind was 15 to 18 feet tall, trees thousands of feet tall, so this creature would have been massive and stunning. Lucifer, now possessing this creature, would share the same message he did in Jannah. He shared with the woman that there were things being held back from her, mysteries, and that happiness would only be found in following their own desires, the desires of our own hearts. Lucifer believed the covenant was an impossible idea and that Jah was just being selfish. Everyone was watching. This was primetime TV, the guardians, the unfallen realms, everyone. And the woman began to walk towards the tree of knowledge. She began to gaze upon it. You could almost hear in her countenance this question being asked, what was so different about this tree? Why couldn't they eat of it? It looks so similar to the tree of life. And just then, as if Lucifer was reading her thoughts, he asked her if Michael told her not to eat of every tree of the garden. And she was enchanted with the idea of a creature that could communicate with her audibly. No other creature had done that yet. The serpent began to whisper how beautiful she was. It never crossed her mind that this could be the enemy they had been warned about. Moment by moment, she began to wonder if what this serpent was saying could be true. And if the fruit of this tree led to this creature being able to talk, what could it do for her? So she was handed a piece of fruit of this tree and she ate it. She felt as though something magical was happening and she grabbed more fruit and ran to her companion. She relayed the feelings she was having and the mystical powers of this fruit that caused animals to speak. But the father of our race knew deep down this was the enemy they had been warned about. Everyone was watching in absolute disbelief. Jannah went silent. Mankind had chosen Lucifer as their leader, and now they would be slaves to him. But Adam felt he couldn't live without this beautiful woman by his side. Eve did seem happier to him, and he decided to share her fate, whatever that may be. At first, they thought they felt better, enlightened. But once their robes of light began to disappear, there seemed to be this chill in the air. And they both hid in shame. And Lucifer, well, he went off to celebrate. The question on everyone's minds was this: would this event now give Lucifer and the legions entrance back into Jannah? You see, if we passed the test, we were to have been given access to Jannah and all the realms. But once Lucifer took the title as King of the Blue Planet, each leader of each planet is granted access to the councils at the capital in Jannah. And there is plenty of evidence in the Hebrew scriptures of intelligent life other than us out there. As everyone was trying to understand what had just happened, it was told that Michael and Jah were having a private meeting. Michael came out of the meeting 3 times with emotions all over the place. No one understood what was going on. Finally, Michael walked out and stated that they had a plan to save man and to one day end the war and restore peace to all the realms. The accusation had been made that Jah and Michael were selfish dictators. They would refute that accusation. How? By Michael becoming one with mankind, becoming one of us and restoring mankind to the condition as it was in the beginning. Michael shared that he would lay down all of his powers, his title, and all authority, and would live as man and would be fully dependent on the intervention of the guardians to accomplish his mission. Michael would never again have all the powers that he once did. His omnipresence, his ability to be anywhere and everywhere at once, would forever be gone. He would become one with the human race. Everything was at risk. If Lucifer could lead Michael to betray the covenant and choose to look out for himself and choose self over love, all would be lost. Mankind, through Michael, would prove to be faithful to the covenant, and through the sacrifice of Michael, mankind could live again and eventually live forever. When Michael told the guardians that he would give up his life to save man, many offered to give up their lives instead, but were told only the life of one of the Elohim would satisfy the accusations. Before this, Michael had been visiting that first couple each day in the garden. And once this plan to save man was announced to all of Jannah and the unfallen realms, Michael went to inform mankind personally. The couple was hiding in the garden when Michael got there, blaming each other for what had just happened. They were told that they would have to leave this paradise and death would be the result of their choice. As they walked out of that garden, they wept. Michael put his arms around them, and once out of the garden, Michael revealed the plan to them, this mystery that had been hidden from all realms for all ages. He told them there was hope. He would become one of them. He would take their penalty upon himself. He would show that the covenant was the only way peace could be sustained and restored. But he would have to lay down his life to save man. And they couldn't really grasp what he was saying, so he demonstrated it in the most painful way. An innocent lamb was sacrificed and a system was inaugurated to remind them of the awful results of selfishness and disregarding of the covenant. Death would ultimately be the result. As awful as this sounds, without it, man would forget what selfishness ultimately leads to, which is extinction without a Savior. This concept is hard to understand, but if you think about it, it's like 2 individuals being put on an island, a man and a woman. They can work together and thrive and make babies, or they can war against each other. They can hate each other, and eventually one will kill the other, and then alone the other will eventually get old and die. And the end of that story is extinction. We've seen this experiment, this war, play out for thousands of years, and we see it in nature and in culture, and we are constantly choosing between these 2 principles, selfishness and love. Even today, our brightest minds recognize we need an intervention or we will ultimately go extinct. But because time must be given for both principles to play out, here we are today. Lucifer, though, he began to realize his only way of escape was to get as many on this planet as possible to side with him. This meant he and the legions must replace Elohim in the hearts and the minds of men to gain this victory. How he would do that is what we will find out next.